we talked about this, you can't teach heart and you can't teach height. So one, if he's 7 feet tall, it's like, I don't really need to see me film. Like, I'm gonna at least be like, yes, please come. I would like to do a workout or send me a full tape. But the same thing with the heart being like, I can't teach someone to care about diving on the floor or playing hard defense or rebounding or boxing out. So I'm at least gonna take a look at them. You decided to do that before the podcast? I
was feeling slim and dry.
Was it the photo with the red?
No,
red LEDs?
No, it's just me with that six pack on. I'm just leaning backwards, and it's just What?
This is what I mean, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and I'm gonna not
super aggressive.
Why is that aggressive?
Super aggressive.
Anyways, welcome back to Shipped Across the Border.
What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Shipped Across the Border. My name is Max. I'm here with Chris. And we have a very, very special guest on today. I feel like one of the strongest red strings in the red string theory of me and Chris and kind of how we were intertwined before we met and how we started this.
What is the red string theory?
It's like how you go through life and like there's different like strings that attach you to different people.
Okay.
And I feel like Brad is one of the strongest ones that connected me and you. So Brad is a high school basketball coach for AAU kids, runs the Ontario Summer Development Program, which is a very big name and contributor to youth basketball in Canada, but more specifically in Ontario. And we're back in the basement. Unfortunately, school year ends. We didn't really have much of a setup to begin with. They're kind of all over the place. So we're used to going on the fly. And so yeah, we're gonna get into it. We have a good episode for you guys today.
So you met Brad in grade 7.
So I guess we can start with that.
Yeah.
The first exposure I've ever had to Brad was at the shirt he's wearing right now, the Ontario Summer Development Program, which Brad, I don't know if it's yours or I know you run it.
No, I run the Central East region for the Ontario basketball. So our province or our state, they do it in different places in Ontario, and then I just do one of the regions.
So Brad, obviously there was tryouts, probably 150, 200 kids like there is every year. Every all the kids want to play on this team. It's more of like a development thing than anything, but like we talk about on the podcast, you seek out to be with the best people around you, then you're going to get better. So it just creates an environment of all the best kids at your age, which now we know now. Of maybe I wasn't in the top 20 kids. I'm probably still not in the top 20 kids. Definitely not in the top 20 kids in Ontario. But that being said, a lot of those kids that were in that program maybe aren't in the position that I'm in now and Chris was in. And so that's how I met Brad. I think we want to talk about it a little bit because I did not make that team. If that wasn't evident, I feel like we talked about that before. We kind of want to hear why, what is this, 9 years later, and then kind of get into some stories about that.
So why didn't he make the team?
And what do you guys do?
Yeah, so it's I think you guys touched about this too, is what do you want to do in your off season and how you want to get better. There's strong opinions about both. My personal opinion is the off season's for development. So
sure.
Like you guys talking about lifting and getting better, you're talking about, particular things you're working on. That's what the program's for. It's not necessarily a team. And I literally tell the people now, it's like, if you're looking for an AAU team, this is not the right place. And it's not a right or wrong thing. Like some people want that and some people need that. But if you're looking for a development over like 2 months, and that was kind of the idea, and you said bring good people around, and I laugh a little bit looking back because we were just looking at the list and my comments on you made it through the first cut, the second cut, maybe not the third cut, and it wasn't necessarily anything that you did or you didn't do, and the names on that list, like you have surpassed the people that were there that maybe did make it.
For sure.
And I think even something for me, and I was thinking about notes for today and things to touch on like you saw the longer term vision because you could have just quit, right? Like,
that was honestly one of the biggest, like, you know how Stephanie said like, you need a turning point, you need something to happen to you, and before that was the only time I've ever been cut from anything.
Probably, yeah.
Because I was probably the worst player on Vaughan Panthers when we were second in the country, second OBAs, and then I went down a little bit. So going from Vaughan, I played on JCC and then played on Vanguard North, what it is now, and then I've never been cut before, other than that one time, and that was a really first feeling of like rejection. And obviously, it's different feelings of like not playing, but I've always like had my feet in the water. I've always had a slice of the pie, and that was the first time where I was like, no, like you're not good enough.
I don't know if you remember. Do you remember what I said? And I've changed this over the years. Remember what I said at the end of it?
I don't.
For everyone's?
I don't.
So some of the things we always say is like, one, whether you make the program or not, you're already ahead of other people that aren't here. So sure. One, we always focus on like, again, making it, being positive about things, and the reality is you don't get everything that you want.
For sure. Only 10% of the kids at that tryout make it.
Exactly.
Maybe less.
Right? So when you think about that, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you're bad or you didn't make it or particular things that happen. And we tell everyone, being like, you're already ahead. So one, you should be congratulatory and happy about that for yourself. Two, yes, you can be pissed off. And honestly, if me not taking you led you to have a stronger drive and a stronger...
That was when I started working hard, honestly.
Right? And I'm okay with that. And like, I don't need people to like me, but if I'm part of that journey, it's kind of funny now, again, this, you're sort of the red string kind of thing, you'd be like, all right, well, like, I was part of that journey, even though I didn't necessarily take you. I hope that you took what many people don't do, where Max, one of your strengths is like, you're committed, and even though you may not get the result you want,
for sure,
you're reserved and like, I'm going to go for it.
For sure.
Like, and that's what got to the point now too, which is
sure.
when Chris had first told me, it's like, oh, I'm going to this place, and then I forget if I think I knew that you were
the first thing you DM me,
Madai, I think.
You DM me, you're like, how are you getting along with Roll Nick? And then that's how I knew.
We didn't even know each other at this point.
All right.
Because I wasn't playing the runs.
No, because you were recovered, right?
Yeah, free throws, and I was like, I walked over to him and I was like, you know Brad Matsugu? And then we started talking, and you're like, how the fuck is Brad?
Who are you?
Who am I? And it was just like, yo, and yeah. But it's kind of funny because we had like a polar opposite. He cut you, but he's the only reason I made the SPA team. Yeah.
He's the only reason
I didn't find this out until like...
That's not entirely
I was going to introduce him as the only person that literally the single reason, other than God, why you play college basketball. Why you play college basketball.
Okay, well, let's not go that far. Yes, again,
you are
a piece
Jesus,
of that
basically.
journey. Well, it's just interesting too, and that's the same thing where I don't know. Did we actually tell the story on how Chris made the team or didn't make the team?
He talks about how he went to the grassroots tryout and dropped some dude in front of Elijah Fisher.
I was not part of that, so I can't verify or refute that.
But the cameras were off. The cameras were not on.
So I can't refute
that one.
But yeah, that's where our story started, was at one of the tryouts, right? But I honestly don't. Again, I always forget when we talk about things because we kind of separate out between the players and the coaches, and now obviously you're older and not really part of the team on the things in the back end. And even as Max was saying, like, oh, why didn't I make it? And it's like, it's not always the things that you necessarily do or don't do. It could be other people just do better things, or not better things, but just, again, the opportunities are there, and at the end of the day, the coaches have to pick, and right or wrong, they just got to pick those decisions, right?
A lot of it, I think, also is like potential as well, because at the end of the day, you're dealing with kids who are 13, 12, 13, 14, and so you're not necessarily, like, someone could be really, really good, but maybe you see something, or you see, maybe have smaller parents, and like obviously like there's whatever, but like obviously you see a kid, shout out Ryan Rudnick, then like even if he was dog shit, you're gonna have him a part of your program because you see the potential and you see the work ethic and you see the path that he's on, and you are gonna want to foster that because that's just what it is. And obviously,
so that's the unfortunate part about basketball, right? And the kind of the old saying is like, you can't teach height,
exactly,
right? But on the flip side, again, for Max, is like you also can't teach heart. So there's a balance on there. But the law of averages and probabilities after doing this for many years, and also I've had some great training through Canada Basketball, Ontario Basketball. I literally got a pamphlet saying like, okay, when we think about the elite of the elite, like national level players, these are the things that mathematically fit into the equations.
6'8",
like 6'4" is short for basketball.
Yeah,
and that's just
for sure.
Like volleyball. Volleyball is for the most part a tall person sport too.
Yeah.
So like there's certain things like for like weightlifting is not a tall person thing. Like it benefits the smaller, compact people, and that's what that's designed for. So you're right, it's part of that. But even when I talk to my assistants this year, it's like. I've changed it over the years too, where it's not necessarily just take all the 10 tallest kids, because at the same time, it's a development program not just for basketball, but, and I'm sure we'll talk about it,
young
like
men.
Exactly, right? So who the characters, like we literally, or not name names, but we decided on not taking a kid for this year because like his attitude was just bad. He was like,
and that happens all the time. That happens all. 2 kids on not mine, but I include you because you're around. On the team got cut this year just because of their attitude and just different things. And obviously, I'm not going to say names, but just off the court stuff that you got to make sure like you are a complete person in the classroom, how you treat people. If you tell a teacher off or you like, that's going to get back to somebody of who you value their opinion. And that's going to negatively impact you. And so you have to make sure you're taking care, you're crossing all your I's and dotting all your T's in all areas of life, because basketball is just one avenue.
You say crossing your I's and dotting your T's?
Crossing your T's and dotting your I's.
I didn't say Max was an academic. So that's
Although, Gray just got back, so
There you
maybe
go.
we could disprove that.
It's not going to that.
Well, here's the thing, and this is where I think that for yourselves and also the people that you're trying to help, is that you're growing up in such a public, I don't know how to say it. It's like a public era. And what I mean by that is literally everything's recorded, everything's on the internet. You post literally, there's like apps that are designed for you to post at a certain time every single time, or things that disappears, or like,
fucking no.
right?
I have to wake up at 3 a.m. to post a TikTok for Christmas.
Right? So, which is great because honestly, like even things for me learning about from coaches overseas or like in different countries or like, I'm following, this training group in Japan, can't speak the language, but like I can see the drills and you're like, oh, that's kind of cool. But it's also the downside of this too is like your entire life has been documented. And I think that is something that your generation just has that has had to almost learn how to deal with. And this is a society thing too, not to get too deep, but like the whole Facebook and Twitter kind of thing. And that's the thing you're saying is like literally anything you post, whether it be about a teacher or a friend, and people that are going to get recruited or NBA players and things like that, and you see all the TikTok videos, like, again, they're watching you all the time, and they don't need to watch you. They literally can just Google your name and find out everything about you.
Our assistant coach on our team, Coach P, shout out Coach P, we just had an episode with him, makes an emphasis to follow every single person who's trying out on Instagram. Literally, one dude got cut because he was posting like stuff about smoking weed and like, what do you call it? Or like had money in front of his face. This is just not a guy we want to have in our program. So like, if you are doing some stuff, like it's going to be found, especially if you're flaunting it. And like just make sure you're careful with your off court actions. And you even see in the NBA of John Morant pulling a gun on Instagram Live and then ends up being suspended for like how many games? 30, 40 games? Which literally he could have won like MVP this year. Like he literally could have won MVP this year.
I will say it's weird because I'm on like both sides of the spectrum, so I'm so ingrained in this with the podcast and everything, and my dad and my mom don't even have phones. So it's like just the polar opposite. That's probably the first time I ever actually understood what like social media was. My dad grew up in an age where like he did crazy stuff, and he said he's so glad there wasn't an iPhone around because it would be out there to haunt him.
You can even talk about how like the situation that was going on at school where someone wrote something on a whiteboard.
Oh yeah, that was ridiculous.
Chris took a picture of it, sent it to Ian.
We're not going to go super in depth, but basically it was like some racial stuff that was clearly not supposed to be going on. There was a whiteboard that someone had on their dorm room, and someone wrote some not so fancy stuff on it, and I sent it to Ian because he had been like dealing with this stuff. I was like, how do you want to deal with this? And then he just left it, and then it came all the way back around. And
like 4 months later.
This was like 2 weeks ago.
Chris got ambushed outside the weight room.
And then they're like, oh, what's going on? And then his coach pulled me aside and was like, did you take the picture? And then I was like, he had to jog my memory, and then it was like, got up to administration, the kid who wrote it got suspended, and it's just like a whole thing.
That's the thing. They're like, people think that if I put something up and I delete it or whatever, like the internet is forever. It literally is forever. And when we think about advice to players and things like, as you're saying, it's like the things in grade 7, because when you think about this, when you were in grade 7 in that program, you did not have TikTok. You did not. Instagram was not around.
I was outside.
You were outside working, just playing, and honestly, also one of the reasons why probably you are where you are, because kids don't do that anymore too. Another entire topic, but I'm sure again you did some things back then. Be like, ugh, thank goodness that wasn't recorded, or someone was around with a camera or a video or things like that. And that's just the way the world is now.
But also another thing with that is like as I got older, grade 9, grade 10, grade 11, and I feel like as social media started to become more popular, and I started like seeing, oh, this person just got an offer from there, this person's going to this prep school, this person just dropped 20, and you start comparing yourselves. I feel like if I was in grade 7 and I just got cut, and now I'm comparing myself to all of these people who are having all of these success, which may go home and have significantly worse situations or whatever than I do. I don't see the sight of that because all I see is just what people are posting, and it just really derail everything that has happened.
So there's so many things in that, right? And especially from, let's just say basketball, right? You're comparing yourself to this, and this. And I try to remind people about this. It's like, who out there do you know actually posts just their failures?
Nobody.
And the answer is, for the most part, nobody. There are some people out there that kind of like fails and things like that, but like it's more of a joke rather than a serious thing. And that's the hardest part, is that you never used to know what the guy down the street, what the guy in the other city is doing. And this is a society thing too, and be like from a beauty perspective, or like if it's about, the way you look and the reasons why that the problems always existed. And the reason why, again, like I think it's the TDSB or one of our school boards is like suing Meta, because being like, you're actually detrimental to our society and like we're suing you because like these problems always existed, but now it's on like steroids, right?
Yeah,
because everything is instantaneous too. And I think it's also made it worse for basketball players because you see like, yeah, that guy dropped 20. But did you see that he was, you know, working in the gym 20 hours a week or whatever it is, doing 20,000 shots. And the generation of players now don't really understand that it takes you months, maybe years to get to that level. And people are like, again, not to blame Steph Curry, but like they see Steph Curry's success, but they don't see the years and the thought exactly, right? And that's part of when people give up really easily is because they just don't really have the mental toughness or just like the drive to fight through literally like pain to get the results.
Literally on the opposite end of the spectrum is, you could see he had 22 points, but you don't know that he was 8 for 30. And he hit his step back, but he missed the last 7 of them.
Yeah.
And all that was on the video that he posted on his Instagram story was his step back over 2 people. And it's like, why were you even comparing to him? He's not going to be playing basketball in 3 years because this is the least, that's just not a translatable style to any next level of competition. It's like better off just doing Mikins, or obviously not Mikins, but like
as he was talking,
don't diss Mikins. Mikins will help.
As he was talking, it kind of jogged a memory of like because my first year of AAU was my last year of AAU, and I was like thrown into the fire of like NBA8s that post all their highlights and everything. And I realized I was chasing a highlight in NPH because they post everything. And that kind of took away from my ability to just focus on the game and like barrel down on certain things. It definitely hurt my growth as a player.
For sure. I feel like I'm also like thinking, like I literally had that realization as well. So I'm playing on a summer team with a lot of guys that you would know. So we're doing the Brody League.
Trust me, I've seen it.
You see that mix?
See, this is what I mean.
Exactly.
Yes, I've seen the mix. I don't.
I think it's cool. It was pretty cool.
I don't need the mix. Thank you.
No.
As I talked about, like they also don't see again what are maybe some of the things that you didn't do so well.
Exactly. So I'm gonna shout out Mark. I love Mark. Shout out Mark. He had a step back. It was so tough. He had 6 points and was like 2 for 8. And I love him. And he's gonna come out this weekend and kill. But like you wouldn't have known that from the video. Like Rudnick looked at All-Star, shout out Ryan, but he only had like 8 points. He didn't kill, and we're not even playing a high level competition. The lob was super tough.
So here's an interesting one, because I was just talking to a college coach here in Ontario, and we're talking about it, and he says, you know what, man, like, I've got so many film from everybody, like, if I legitimately got a film from someone that, like, for 2 minutes, literally just, like, played hard defense, or rotated well, or, you know, got a few blocks, I would probably want to see that more than someone's highlight film.
We talked to Rich Sutter. He said he doesn't even want highlight films anymore. He wants the full game. He wants to watch the full game. He's like a really old school coach.
So yes, but I think the point for this one is like, again, who's going to send you a highlight film showing the things that they're not good? So his point about seeing the entire film. Mm-hmm. But I think the short term was like, and this coach is not alone in being like, we talked about this, you can't teach heart and you can't teach height. So one, if he's 7 feet tall, it's like, I don't really need to see me film. Like, I'm going to at least be like, yes, please come. I would like to do a workout or send me a full tape. But the same thing with the heart being like, I can't teach someone to care about diving on the floor or playing hard defense or rebounding or boxing out. So I'm at least going to take a look at them. But for all the people, like you said, that just look like, who makes a mixtape that makes you look terrible? And if you did, get your money back.
Exactly. But no, what I was saying before with the Brody thing was like, so they do a lot of media. They have player of the games. They have all this stuff. And so I was really, really, really sick. Like the weekend before, like I had really bad food poisoning. I was in bed, literally got out of bed and went to the game. And I played really, really, really well. I had like 21-9. I won player of the game. And then right after that, whatever, I was like, I played really well. I want them to post me, post me, whatever. And now I'm like, and they posted it. I won player of the game, and they deleted it. And now it's like now it's like affecting me way more because this doesn't. I play college basketball. This is the Brody League. This doesn't fucking matter at all.
He was actively complaining about it.
But like, I literally DM'd the guy. I'm like, yo, like, are you guys posting that? Because I just wanted to have it. But then I started to think to myself, like, what am I doing? Like, I played really well because I went in just thankful to be able to play basketball because I was just so sick and I killed. Yeah. And now our game is tomorrow at 4. And if I go in tomorrow, I'm like, I want to get player of the game. I want to get player of the game. I guarantee you I'm going to play not even close to as good as I played last game. So just focus on the basketball. I guess everything will come is the point I was going to say.
So there's like and I know Chris likes quotes too. And I'm not good at
Chris
quotes.
loves quotes.
I know.
Only from Alex.
Only from Alex. I know. He and I have talked about this too. And I'm not good at quotes. I always have to memorize them. But this is not one of them. But the concept is this, is if you can focus less on the result and more on how to get to that result, you will be far better off. For sure. And honestly stress yourself out way less too. For sure. So like to your point of being like, if you're really focusing on just a singular goal, then it's like it's binary. I mean, like you're getting clear of the game, you're not playing a game. So you're basing your entire exactly. But like as we know, there's so many things that are packed into that. So if you focus on how you got to that result, whether it be great, like I shot well, or I played defense, or I got a bunch of steals, or I rebounded well, or I drove to the bucket, or I worked in my corner three, then the result is really secondary. And the result, no matter the result, if you're happy with the process and the things that you're doing, then it's no longer binary. I mean, like, no, like I did all the right things. And I always use this as an example. If you played LeBron James, right, every like 1-on-1 for 1,000 tries, like you would probably lose every single time.
A lot of them.
Probably all of them.
All of them. I mean, like you lose a lot of them. Like I'm gonna lose a lot of fucking games.
Yes.
Not I'm losing like a majority of them. I mean, I'm losing all of
But
them.
would you then be super upset yourself,
Hell
being
no.
like,
I'd be so grateful I was in the gym.
yes, but that's like it's kind of a parallel to that because you're in the gym with LeBron James. But forget about it. There's someone really, really good then, right? And you lose to someone really, really good, but you play your best. You play your best defense, your best offense, and you legit just lose because he is just that better than you. Are you going to value yourself just because you went 0-100?
No way.
If you do, then yes, you're going to be in real big trouble.
You're also going to have a very short playing career.
And that's exactly the same. So same thing for you, it's like, again, you caught yourself. You're like, hey, am I focused on the result rather than that?
With social media, like we were just talking about, it's so hard to go down that slope. And I feel like I literally caught myself. But also, like, I'm thinking, like, why do I care so much about this one because they posted and they deleted it? And I'm like hyper fixated on it. Like, why they delete it? I want to have it. I expect myself, there's like 14 games. I want to be an all-star. If I'm going to be an all-star, I want to get like 8 of the 14 of them. And so like, why am I focusing on one of them?
So there's the chemical reaction on this too.
The dopamine that you get from recognition from other people.
Yeah, and I only learned about this maybe in the past few years, and like the science behind this is so interesting. And I think for kids, probably just go over their head, but even for parents and thinking about this on like the whole like, you have a threshold and a limit on how much dopamine you have. So when you run out, like you run out real quick and you're just doom scroll and go through it. And I think that's the other thing too, and why, like for yourself or for anybody really, to have that self-recognition, like, why is that? Or like, again,
so important.
Losing your, like I left my phone somewhere for like a few hours. I mean, like, let's say you intentionally do that and like just that amount of stress and anxiety and
just get back to baseline.
Exactly. Like sometimes being back to Stone Age isn't a bad thing. So there's a balance there.
Kind of before we get into the other topics, just kind of staying on the, I guess, working with the youth and the younger basketball generation. What, like, do you find a difference between working with the kids now? I want to bring up Nathan Rudnick. I want to hear. I know yourself. We're not singling out individual players. I personally think Nathan Rudnick's going to the NBA, and I'll show all my friends, everybody I know, yo, this kid is going to the league. But like, you're coaching him in a different world than you coached maybe even Chris 3-4 years ago. Like, I just want to hear, like, what's it like coaching the kids now who, like, as you said before, the kids don't go outside and get play. Like, do you notice any difference, I guess is what I'm trying to say, between kids 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years ago versus the kids you're coaching now? Work ethic, discipline, maybe even the way they speak to you?
No, because I control that. So like the general saying,
nobody says anything.
The general saying is, as again, parenting or basketball, they're very similar, or teaching is like kids will do whatever you let them do.
For sure.
So like if you let them talk back to you, like their job is to test your lines, and my job is to let you know exactly where that line is and when you cross that line, and holding everybody accountable, not necessarily punishing, but holding everybody accountable for where that line is. So that does not happen. That has not changed. Although I will say some of my parents who have coached their older kids and younger kids, now that I've had my own kids, have made comments being like, you've become softer now that you've had children.
Which we're going to get into.
Might be true. Yeah, I don't see it because I see it from the outside. Yeah. And I would say probably true because I always had former players come back and say, like, you let them get away with that? Like, years ago, I was with me.
You shot a mid-range?
Yeah. It's like, why would never be like
but I can't even be in the
Yeah. So that. Generally, it's interesting because it's a little tough. And I'll preface that a little bit. It's hard to tell how much impact COVID honestly did have on players.
That's the main, I feel like,
right?
separate differentiator between, like, generations.
Like, but we've had a couple years out of COVID, so like some of the kids should be kind of through this, so I'm still not entirely convinced that's the entire thing. To your point on like the generation and what they do and where they don't go, I will say, like, when I watch film of my teams from, again, 5, 7, 10 years ago, the general athleticism and okay, I gotta be careful. It's not general athleticism, but like hip mobility, and you guys are doing this on your teams. I mean, like when I look at like their ability to go low, and it was interesting because we did this test like just to do a squat. Like half the team now can't get in a regular squat position, rather than, which, as you know, with defense, if you lower you get, whoever gets lower wins, right? So that mobility piece is significantly different. Like we just don't have people that are agile, mobile, like is a general statement. It's
right now.
Right now.
Okay.
80% of them don't have the athletic ability. Now, is that linked to, again, playing video games more, not being able, literally just like...
Getting in fault positions, climbing on the monkey bars. Or
right? And just doing general athletic stuff, which again, with the theory and research says, play multiple sports and do it. I will also say over the times, we now have, not in a bad way, but we have trainers, like specific trainers. You have multiple trainers, you have multiple teams, you have multiple coaches. So are kids necessarily specifying sports earlier now? Yeah. Is that good or bad? I don't know. It's hard to tell. And again, there's probably many studies are going to go down that path.
For both avenues. I actually did a project on.
Yeah, right? And it's just interesting. So I would say from that perspective, it's interesting. From a... we talked about this with social media. I think the mentality has shifted, as in because people are looking for the short-term results. Being like, oh, that guy dropped 20, so I'm going to drop 20. And that comparison pieces has bled into the way they play and the way they train. Because like, great, I'm just going to train now. I'm going to drop 20 next week. It doesn't quite...
step back, so I want to...
Yeah, and that kind of like one-upmanship culture has changed too. Being like, as you said, I say, where's my player of the game? Where is it? Like, why isn't it up there? So now you're focusing in on the results, not the process to do it.
Exactly.
Again, the trust the process is a little overused, but it's not wrong because you can tell it's like some of these teams take many years to develop. So I would say those are the difference.
The scariest thing you're going to see is those teams where the guys have been playing together for 5 years and they know exactly when one dude's going to cut. They know exactly where the guy in the corner wants to catch the pass, and those are the most dangerous teams.
I'm going to steal a Hormozy quote in this one.
Oh, no.
We knew it was coming.
You
were too.
He said it.
Was that 19 minutes?
Exactly. It's you want what they have, not how they got it.
Yeah.
Which is just kind of sums up the whole thing. Yeah. But I do want to give people some context. I want to start with this first piece I have here, which is your childhood, where you were born, and sort of gives people like a quick, not a speed run, but like a...
So I was a terrible basketball player.
Okay.
Legit terrible basketball player. I'm actually a baseball player by trade. Played AAA baseball out through high school, playing high school teams, all-star teams, all that fun stuff. And basketball, I think I stopped playing rep in like grade 9. Got cut from the junior team. I'm like, whatever. Played house league for the rest of the time. So I'm actually not a great. I'm okay. I can do some things, but I'm not.
You
I'm
use
not a
the physicality that
I use my advantages. The way again, what you're good at, you use.
That the 12-year-olds don't.
Hey, you got to use whatever advantage you can take. So that's where I started, and again, I was more of I played football. Again, played basketball. Didn't really play soccer. I swam competitively until I was like maybe grade 8. And then, I was not a very good athlete. I was like massive. I was probably like, I don't know, 200 pounds in grade 10. So,
yeah, I'm jealous. So was college ever in your sights in terms of sports?
So I thought about playing baseball. Mm-hmm. So I went to University of Waterloo and went to Wilfrid Laurier doing a business degree and a math degree. And honestly,
you did the double degree?
I did, yeah.
That's actually really, really interesting. My best friend's doing that right now.
Yeah, so I was the 5th year of it. So
awesome.
Basically you go to 2 different schools. There's 2 colleges or universities in the same city. And I would literally walk from one to the other. It was 15 minutes away.
Zach does that right now.
Yeah,
really
which is fun because I was really good at math. Not to stereotype, but yes, I was good at math. I was also good at business, and I was interested in that. And I thought about trying out for the baseball team. In retrospect, we've talked about this, I kind of regret not trying out. And at least trying out and knowing where I stood. Because I was good. I was good. So, was I that good? I don't know. The reason I didn't do it was because, one, I thought I didn't have enough time, blah, 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 blah. But there were some other people on my team, in our program, that did it as well. But it was the same thing. I was really good at music, which maybe people don't know. And I tried out for the orchestra at Laurier, and I made it.
That's awesome.
But then I declined it because I'm just I can't. Because whatever, the rehearsals and schedule didn't work out. Mm-hmm. But I made it. And I made the conscious decision because not like, could I have made it? So I have that feeling towards baseball when I did it. But no, college aspirations other than baseball and playing, like, no, I'm not athletic, did not go to the gym, was out of shape.
So how do you end up becoming...
Well, before you do that, I was going to say, in terms of sports, did your parents want you to play sports, not want to play sports? Did they care at all? Like,
I don't know. I think, like, my dad liked sports. My grandfather really loved baseball and the Blue Jays. Mm-hmm. He would do old school scoring. I don't know if you guys are even old for this. You can score baseball on a scorecard with a pen and paper. And then what they used to do is listen to the radio, because TV did not exist, and they would score.
I'm just not familiar with baseball really much. So, like, somebody of my age who is, they probably, I mean, I would not.
If they were a purist, they would know.
But I don't really know baseball, so you could tell me, like, anything, really.
Yeah, so you guys...
I fell asleep at the Blue Jays game, like, the third inning before. I don't like baseball at all.
And even your lacrosse knowledge is slightly questionable, too.
Zero lacrosse knowledge. The fact that you just assumed I had any lacrosse knowledge is... I did something right.
I did the penalties for one game of my entire lacrosse.
So, no, parents were, again, academics were first, sports were good to get into exercise. And again, my dad grew up pretty poor, so like he didn't have the opportunity to do that. Mm-hmm. So I think he liked it and learned some things. And again, I played rep t-ball. Like that's
fire.
Yeah, right. So
bombs.
There was one guy. Unfortunately, he's passed away, but he and I were pretty much tied together in the team, and he was the third baseman, and every like long bomb, he would always beat me. I'd be number two. I'm fine with that, but yeah, I was a big kid, so got a lot of weight to throw around.
So then coming out of college, what were you looking into? What were you trying to do? Maybe not even sports, just in general in life.
Well, it kind of merged both. So like the reason I got into coaching was actually my baseball coach. His son was playing house league. With the Etobicoke, way in the West, the Etobicoke Thunder, but their house league organization. That's where I grew up and where I played. And I think his son told me, or someone told me, it's like, do you know, like, could you help out a little bit? And I'm like, what do you mean? It's like, well, I don't really know what I'm doing. And like the kid said, yeah, like my dad, his dad, who was the coach, house league coach, he's like, he had us do this drill where literally he had us all close our eyes and then try and feel where everybody else was.
Yeah, then you're like, I need to fucking... what the hell's happening?
And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I can probably do better than that. So I actually came back and forth from Waterloo on weekends because they played games on the weekend, and I would help out with them. And that's actually how I started. And then I started to convene with them, and I won a chip for House League with that team. Actually, I still talk to those guys. Some of them are playing ball, some of them are selling software and a whole bunch of things in life. But that's how I started. And then gradually got from there on to rep teams and all that fun stuff. But that's how kind of I got started coaching, was honestly by accident, because my baseball coach, who was a phenomenal baseball coach, was just not a good basketball coach.
Mm-hmm. So do you remember going into that? Like, did you feel lost? Did you feel like they're not going to respect me because I didn't play college basketball? Do you remember how you felt when you were going into that?
No, they were like teenagers.
Oh,
they don't. Okay. They did a drill where they closed their eyes and threw the ball around.
I guess.
I don't. If they didn't question that, I think I was okay.
Mm-hmm.
Seriously, if they didn't question
that,
it's also house league too. Mm-hmm. So the expectation is a little bit lower, but it was great for me to get my get my feet wet and be like, okay, this is what is kind of interesting.
For sure. So how did that evolve into what we're doing now?
I just really liked it, and I've always said, like, if I can make as much money teaching as I do in the private sector, I probably would do that, as much as, like, I have a ton of respect for teachers. But even, like, when I was in Waterloo and some of the parents, and again, one of the greatest compliments I got was from a former player of mine, and the dad came and was like, you are a great teacher, like not necessarily a coach, but a teacher. Mm-hmm. And that actually was from the dad of a player that passed away that I do a charity tournament for, the Kumar Classic. And just those type of things, and why I continue to do it is, like, again, I just kind of enjoy it, and that's why it evolved into just coaching the kids. And people always ask me, it's like, oh, like, who are you related to on the team? I was like, well, nobody. And other parents ask, and they're like, oh, who's his kid on the team? It's like, nobody. It's like, what do you mean? Because just now, like, there are very few people out there that are, willing to take the time and effort and money to, if they don't have a I don't know, something you get out of it. Like, again, your kid's there, your granddaughter, or like your nephew or niece. It's not that common anymore.
Sure.
So when you find one of those coaches, definitely keep an eye out for them, because like, again, I don't have any biases. Like, Max is not my kid, you're not my kid, so I'm going to bench one of you because you're terrible, not because I like you more than the other one. Like, that's just the way it's going to work. Right?
For sure.
There's a story I think I have that I can tie into all of this, which is like the first time that I had actually technically coached, I guess, which is because
I was gonna ask him. I was gonna bring that up at some point.
When he coached,
Tried to coach.
Sarcastically, I'm going to tell the story so I can defend myself as I'm saying it. But basically, you DM'd me about this little thing we were going to do, like a 5-on-5 with no refs, but it was timed. And I was going to bring Miles, and I was under the impression that he was going to coach, and I was going to stand there with a clipboard and just watch him coach.
In a suit and
whatever. So I showed up with that in mind, and then he goes, "Okay, so what are they doing for warm-ups? What's going on here?" And I was like, "Huh?" I just sink or swim. And me, like, I didn't know what was going on. So we get into the game, and I wasn't talking, and I was just kind of existing. He's like, "You gotta tell them to do something," and I had to control subs and do all of this stuff, and it was just a whirlwind of shit. And he said something to me in one of the huddles that I kind of took, and I want you to kind of talk on this. And you said, a team adopts the personality of their leader, and I kind of held on to that, and I watched what happened with his season, and like when you said that, it stuck with me because I was quiet, and then everyone else in the team was kind of just like doing their own thing, and there was no direction, and I watched what happened to the team when I just didn't coach. I'm wondering like how you figured that out and how you've implemented that.
if I'm not mistaken, the team also had like guy who just committed D1, and like guys who
were better than me.
Guys were very, very talented guys that Chris had I guess not control over, but like Chris was attempting to coach. Heavy emphasis on attempting.
I will also say that there was one point where I subbed Bradley off because he was playing. So I'm not coaching Bradley. I subbed him off. Exactly. He's playing. So at one point I subbed him off, and he just walked over the corner and he goes, "Man, this coach sucks." I was like, "Okay, nice."
That's hilarious. I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, now I'm coaching him.
So a bunch of things on that one. So I think at that point we were having the conversation as well on like, again, you've kind of decided your playing time is done, fair, and then now you're figuring out kind of where you're going with that too. So part of that is also giving you the experience in it, and honestly, like you can't lose in that environment. Like whatever happens, and some of the kids will never see again in life. Maybe you will, and accelerating your like decision between coach and training. And this is my personal belief. I think you can be very good at one or the other. I just don't, like, I'm not a trainer. Like, I can do some things, but, like, my strength is coaching, as in, like, getting 5 people to work together, making sure that the team does well, and orchestrating those people around them.
Sure.
That is my strength. It is not teaching you a step back. I can do some basic stuff with, like, again, grade 7s and 8s for those fundamental things, like playing off at 2 feet and general shooting form, but that's not my strength. And it's just interesting because you're seeing this now, like a lot of trainers like start their own teams, and then people think that the team's going to be, but you got to balance that on where it is. And I think for yourself, that was being like, well, do you actually like this coaching thing or you don't? And if you hated that experience, you're like, I don't know what to do here, also accelerating and exaggerated, we're like, oh no, like this is brutal. Like I am okay with dealing with Max and training one-on-one, and that's my jam. Give me an experience there. So that's that reason was happening. And then also just pushing a little bit. I mean, like, okay, let's just see and push you outside of your comfort zone. Like, as much as you're older, I treat you just like a kid, as in, like, trying to get you better every single time. Just like when Max was in the gym, I was like, I don't care. I have to catch myself with some D1 players, too. And Stefan, like, as an example, like, in that gym, like, I was on him, too. Like, I don't know what you're doing. And, like, you should be dominating because you think you're good. So why are you not running? Like literally, I'm like how can you be that slow? Anyways, so that was part of it too.
He was like, why are we shooting that? Like,
No, so I started off, he gave some people handicaps, so I wasn't allowed to shoot threes. So I'm like, cool, I'm not going to shoot threes. And I was killing in the mid-range. They're like, okay, now you're not allowed to shoot mid-ranges. And now, keep in mind, there's 3 teams. I'm on one team, Ryan Rudnick, who's 6'9", is on the other team, and Steph, who's like just under 7 feet, is on the third team. And so now I can't even shoot. And now I have to just go into the paint over these 6'9", 6'10" people. And I was very.
So do you know why I do that? Not just with you specifically, but even with grade 7s and 8s. I think we talked about this.
Definitely, just like getting out of your comfort zone and just excelling in other areas, just figuring out other ways is how I like.
A little bit. But the other idea is like, let's say you get into a game environment where if your primary weapon is taken away from you,
what can you do?
So yeah, exactly. It's like, so if I know, like, if your primary weapon is shooting the 3, and the other team knows that. And not just the person guarding you, but the entire team knows that, and they take that. It's like Steph, right?
Yeah.
Like Steph Curry, he is a phenomenal shooter. But they take that away from him, and when they take that away from him, it opens up his everything else for him. Yeah. So that's part of the exaggeration piece. Of like, I don't need you to show me what you're good at. I know exactly what you're good at. So now let's see, what is your second, and then to your credit, you did pretty well on your second one. Great. So now I'm going to take your primary and your secondary weapon.
Really struggle.
But that's to make me like, if you can be that good where you take away your primary weapon, your secondary weapon, and you can still be good or okay at that. I mean, like, think about teams that you played where, like, you take away the primary weapon and they're done.
Yeah, for
right?
Sure.
It's like the game plan is take this guy's left hand away from him because he can't do anything else.
So if he would have fried with layups at that point, do you say only left hand layups at that point?
It was too late into the run already. It was too late. It was like the last couple minutes.
But there's always something where it could be like great, and this is where you know where you're getting to a certain level where you're getting very specific. So as an example, it's an exaggeration saying no threes, no mid-range, no layups. But now it's details being great. You can only score attacking from the right side, finishing with your left hand.
Exactly. Yeah.
You can only play on your right foot.
That's.
But if
you say you're laughing, but like that's like
I know.
a detail. That's
if you get to that level where someone has to like be very specific on the things you can only do, that means that you are phenomenal at all those other things.
Yeah, and I'm not at that level yet. But the goal is to eventually be able to get into a gym where, let's just say I'm at an open gym, at a high level open gym, and I'm like, I want to work on my left hand floater today. I'm going to try and get to as many left hand floaters as possible. That's a difficult shot. And if I can still contribute to winning basketball and by focusing on something so specific and so difficult, then I'm at a pretty good place. And I'm not at that place now, but that is the goal.
So go back to the result thing. I mean, like, if you're just focused on frying people at the open gym, then like, just shoot open threes and, like, outrun them because they're, like, out of shape people. Mm-hmm. Or challenge something like, I need to win this game by 30 with my left hand only and one eye closed.
I actually had an encounter so it was at the JCC, and it was, like, me, Redneck. We try and get, like, a couple guys. David Popa, who is in the basketball scene. I don't know if you've worked with him, but he's a very good player. Just a bunch of other guys. And there are this one dude who's like 20-something and just like trains like these little kids, but like he's terrible. And they're all terrible. And it's just blinding the blind, basically. And we were playing pickup with him. And he was like guarding, I was killing him. And it was like game point. And he was on my team. And we were killing. And I was getting buckets. And we were at game point. We were winning by a lot, and I took a really tough shot. Or it was I just finished like 3 like layups in a row off a pick and roll, and then I just took a really tough shot. I was like, "What?" He was like yelling at me. He's like, "Why are you not taking the pick and roll? You just had 3 buckets in a row. Whatever." I'm like, "Dude." After I won the game, I'm like, "Dude, I know like winning a run at JC is really important to you, but I have higher expectations. I know that I can get." Every single time I can get a layup going downhill on pick and roll. I don't want to do that. I want to work on something that will challenge me. Otherwise, I'm not getting anything out of this. I have to explain, and obviously he didn't understand, but that's also why he's not playing college basketball and he's training other shitty kids.
But that's to Chris's original question on like, okay, so when I say, again, it's not just a basketball thing. I think it's just even work and life in general. When you look at a leader, not a manager, and this is an interesting concept as well. Unlike, you don't necessarily have you don't have to be captain to be a leader, or like in corporate terms, like a manager, because you have the title to be you're this person's boss. So same thing to your point on being like, maybe exaggeration on that trainer wasn't very good and his people
she's not even really a trainer.
Which is fine, but that's
and he's a good dude too, from what I know. But pissed me off that thing.
When you think about it, it's the same idea of being like, he's basically that leader of those kids, and they do exactly, in that case, like doing exactly what he's saying. But same thing from a coaching perspective, and you'll probably notice this a little bit even from the teams you played on, like the style of play or just their attitude. Or you've played against teams where like the coach is like ridiculous as in the way they talk to the referees or the other players, or like if you see a coach taunting the other team, most likely those players are going to do the same thing. They're going to taunt the other team because it's not necessarily monkey see, monkey do, but as we said, like my perspective, the coach's responsibility or the leader is to set the bar on everything, not just what they're allowed to do or what's acceptable or what you're encouraging. Mm-hmm. And even by sometimes not stopping someone from doing something, you're implicitly encouraging them what to do. So same thing being like Phil Jackson is a very different personality. I tell my parents this all the time. I would love to be Phil Jackson, where literally sit like, and just be pensive and like just have eloquent like couple things here and there, but that's just not me. And there's like a running joke with all the teams I have is like, how long does Coach Brad stay on the bench and just sit before he actually starts like actively
flailing his arms
and talking to people and just like not sitting there? And it's a personality thing, right or wrong. Like, it's not that Phil Jackson's obviously he's doing very well and did very well, but it's not to say that's right or wrong, because people don't emulate that. But his teams were also very structured, and if you read his book, like, again, he didn't push Zen onto them, but he got them thinking the same way, and that's because his belief on how he wanted his team to operate. And you can say with coaches you've had or players, and you're a leader, even if it's a player or a captain, you'll take on that tenacity, right? Sure. Or their excuses or things like that.
I will say I like the distinction between like a trainer and a coach. After that experience, I said I probably don't really like the coaching route. And now that like at his team, there's guys who come in the gym, and like I've had probably at this point over 100 one-on-one training sessions just in terms of like weightlifting with those guys, and I seem to quite enjoy that, and it seems to be working too, because like I understand weightlifting, I understand what it takes to build muscle.
They respect you,
and they respect me, and it's just like that one-on-one dynamic is something I like a lot more than the team dynamic. I think.
It's different, right?
Something that I feel like we beat him to death for TIDP and all, like me coming to the run. I feel like we talked about that a lot, but just one more thing about that I think is really, really valuable is, and so I'll preface with a story, but basically when I came to the run with your program last summer with Ryan, the one we were just talking about, I just want to talk about like the importance of you and what you're doing of exposing your younger players to players of higher level. And we had Arsalan, who was the Raptors 905 assistant, or I think he still is one of the Raptors 905 assistant coaches, and he worked with the Etobicoke Thunder team like you just talked about, and like he had a group of guys on the team who they were like Division 1. I don't know how good they are compared to like, but they're OBA Division 2, Division 1, and he brought in like a 7-footer from Ontario Tech, me, Ryan, a guy who is playing the CBL, and like to play with and against these grade 8s, grade 9s, just to expose them to what good basketball looks like. And it was just once a week. It wasn't every day, because obviously you aren't getting better by just getting shit on all the time constantly. So they were like going 3 times a week in the mornings. This is like off season, or this was like in addition to their practices. And they brought in once a week just to play. So I thought that was really cool. And then today, actually, funny timing. So I was at a training session up here, and it was me, it was Ryan, and it was another kid who plays at a prep school plays at King Heights, and he's pretty good. He's definitely could be a very solid college basketball player somewhere. And then the fourth person in the workout was this 10-year-old who's extremely, extremely, extremely advanced for his age, and he already had a workout. We kind of just like joined him just to get in the gym time, and he was like missing. Obviously, like we're not missing much during the workout. We're obviously looking a lot better than he was looking. Like he's really, really, really good for his young age. And he was getting really upset, and Jake like pulled him aside. And after we were talking, and I was just kind of explaining to him like, nobody's expecting you to come into this workout and look like the best player, look like a superstar. Hell, you're in the workout with Ryan, who had 20 points versus Harvard this summer. Like, who else your age is even putting themselves? And Jake was really like, just you being in the gym now is so ahead of what everybody else your age is doing. Now we were just stressing the importance to him of like, you're being exposed right now to something that a lot of other kids aren't. So just focus on being grateful that you're being in this gym and being happy. And if you miss a shot, you miss a shot. Just focus on getting better. I just want to hear your thoughts on like exposing your younger athletes to better, I guess, people who are at the level that they want to get to, and how that works for their progression.
Yeah, like, so for that kid in particular, you can tell he was frustrated by the results, because I guarantee if he was making every single shot, he wouldn't have been upset.
For sure.
So the same thing we just talked about earlier is been like, if he's obviously focusing on the results rather than the process, which is, or how to get there, is like training with these people. So that 100% again, and he's 10, and not a surprise that generation on how to change that mentality, because he's getting frustrated by it. But it's like why are you getting frustrated? Like, that's if you have a different perspective on it, you wouldn't get frustrated, right?
If I was him, also, I would also be like super upset. I want to show out really good with these guys. But in hindsight now, I can see how lucky I would be to even be in the gym. I don't even know who the first college basketball, like actual college basketball player I played with. I couldn't give you a moment of like, this is what college basketball was. But knowing what I know now, if I was 10 years old in a gym with people of the level that was in the gym today, I just think it would be, I would have had a completely different mindset. Obviously, hindsight does that to you.
Yeah, yes, hindsight, again, the saying, hindsight is 20/20. But I think the idea is also like, you don't know what you don't know. So being with, like, you don't know what a college workout is like, even for yourself, like when you're up and diving, like, oh, like this is what it's like, and just the entire experience, not just the basketball, but like living away from home, all those type of things. And I think that's also beneficial for them as well. But I think it's also just good, and I'm sure there's an Alex quote in this one too, but it's around surrounding yourself with people that are going to make you better, and those are the ones that you should keep and be around. And if they're not, then they're probably making you worse. And this basketball idea is like, again, I always use the exaggeration for people that are focused on winning. It's like, I can put us in Division 9 and beat everybody if you're focused on getting a gold medal. Great. But like, if you actually want to get better and get people around you, you're going to play a Division 2 team, you might lose, but it's because they're going to make you better. And same thing with this one, being around people that are better than you, in theory, should make you better because you want to train harder. There are also some people that don't want that and don't necessarily want to be pushed and be beaten 100 times against LeBron James. Like, I don't want to do that. I just want to beat someone. And if they're focused on winning, nothing wrong with that. That's the one that gets into trouble when you talk about the development piece too.
I was going to say the development piece, without naming names, I have seen you like turn kids away from coming to certain gym or open gyms and stuff because you said that they're not at the level that we need them to be at to perform with these other kids and make them better.
Yes, I would qualify that with it's not necessarily their skill per se, as a perfect example with this 10-year-old. But if their determination and their attitude allows them to be able to do that, then I'm open to having those. The difference for that one too is like I probably wouldn't put the 10-year-old in a one-on-one battle with Ryan, because then just physically that's probably a little bit dangerous. So that's probably my limitations. But if it comes down to an attitude, I mean, like, if you're going to be here and whine and complain because you're getting your butt handed to you every single time and you don't get the fact that it's actually making you better, this is why typically on average younger siblings are much more competitive and much more drive, because your older siblings just bully you, so you either sink or swim, and they either learn how to survive. So typically, again, there's nothing, not saying that only children don't have that opportunity, but it's just innate on like the idea on like if you're in a big family, there's one piece of chicken on, like you're gonna have to fight everybody if you're gonna get hungry, and like you either survive or you don't survive, as an exaggeration, obviously.
Kind of staying with the theme of like adopting your coaches, I think our coach Madai was sort of a tyrant per se.
Fucking crazy. Shout out Coach Hack.
I kind of talked to other coaches about
like Coach Hack.
Balancing this act between tyrant and the friend and whatever you want to call that. How do you personally sort of balance that act of being not necessarily a tyrant, but like that dictator versus the friend of the kid you're coaching?
There is no friend.
There's no friend?
It's okay. Friend's bad word. Because with Coach Hack, during practice, he was an asshole and he wanted everything done a certain way, and he would fucking rip you a new asshole if he needed to. But you knew that there was love. And off the court, you knew that if you had a problem with the teacher, he would ride or die for you. You knew that if you had a problem with anything, that he would be in your corner. Mm-hmm. And it's just like knowing, like, I guess just not, it's not even necessarily a friend, because obviously you're grown up, like you're not looking at friends with 12-year-olds. That was mad disrespectful. But just being that like coaching at A, like being authoritative, but B, just having like love and like
I will reword it. How do you decide what to reward and what to punish, and how severe of a punishment versus how severe of a reward?
Yeah, that's a little bit different. I think as a general statement for me, it's like, and I say this all the time, is I can tell when you're trying and I can tell when you're not trying. And then when it comes down to effort, being like, it's not necessarily punishment, but like we talk about setting expectations in the bar where it is. So I don't necessarily, and obviously if you're doing the punishment, you probably think of it differently, but the perspective is just holding people accountable on where that bar is. So whatever the drill is, and I try not, you always have to be careful, at least from my perspective as a coach, on focusing on the results. So for example, it could be like, hey, first team to 10 wins and the losers do burpees. That's, you have to balance that on the competition, which is the reason why with like when we're giving you limitations, being like, yeah, so now I'm gonna even the playing field. So yes, I am still rewarding, but I'm rewarding you because you're now doing successful things with your secondary, which is the area of growth. And if you're still winning, then great. And then everybody else, like, I don't know what the heck you're doing. Like you're actually that bad, right? So it's accountability on being like, I'm putting him at a disadvantage to level the playing field. So then the other ones, and that's that balance from a coach perspective on, like I could have stacked the team and put you, Ryan, and Stefan in one and be like, all right, figure it out, go. Now, is that really fair?
Or is anybody getting better? Because I'm not getting better by throwing lobs to Steph and Ryan. Steph and Ryan can fucking catch lobs all day. They're not getting better. And none of the kids are getting better because they're not going to touch the ball once.
Now, you can do that maybe once. I mean, like, look, you think... And
you think you're fucking good.
If the idea is like, okay, I need to teach them to put their egos in check, and like you think you're as good as you think you are, fine, then beat these 3 guys. That's a different purpose, and that's not necessarily a punishment. They're going to lose and have to do burpees or whatever the punishment is, but the purpose of that is like if there is a purpose behind it, or like today for me it's like more of a safety thing. So my general rule is like if there's balls rolling around,
I've
like
seen this happen.
that's a broken ankle, that's a torn ACL, whatever.
Terrifying.
And it happened twice in the same drill. And the second time, I'm just, no, like, end line.
Oh, fucking line, yeah.
But the accountability was there. The accountability was like, I never want to see, literally, in a drill, a ball rolling around. I never want to see that. And my tolerance is that, and the reason for that, you think about love and things like, because I care about you enough to know that could really seriously injure someone, and I'm not willing for that to happen.
Sure.
And that's not a punishment, that's accountability. I've set the bar saying that should never happen, ever, 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 literally 10 minutes ago. You didn't decide to do that, so now there's ramification to hold you accountable for that bar.
And then but it's coming out of a place of, I care for you.
Correct.
Not out of a place of trying to be a dickhead.
I think the difference is as long as, so to your point, as long as you know that the things that are happening are with a different intention, I think that if, in your case, if Coach Hack had just made you run for the sake of running, or like his turnover rack, you know exactly that you're held accountable because turnovers are
Cause us to lose, and we hate losing. Exactly.
So you're being held accountable for it, where yes, the players always think it's a punishment, but the reason is because he set the bar saying turnovers are unacceptable, and not even just one, like you had an entire rack. So clearly,
Which we would clear regularly.
so there's two things for me, right? And I with young players, I try and preface this. One, either you're not listening and you're just like not getting better because you're just turning over the ball over and over again multiple times, or you're actively choosing to ignore the instructions I'm giving you to take care of the ball or how to take care of the ball. Both of which unacceptable. And unacceptable in the bar, so then when you slip up, then fine. Like, and if you don't want to, either start listening or actually learn and get better. And I think that if you didn't have that concept, or he just like made you run or do whatever for no purpose, then like you don't really understand it. Like, yeah, that's more of a punishment, but 100% I'm a dictator. Like, this isn't a democracy. Like, you're gonna do what I want you to do, and you do it my way, because I know better than you at this age. I can't do this with older players as much, but there's still some things being like,
for sure,
right? And that's the difference on 100%. It's a tyrant. It's a tyrant. But how you choose to, like, are you an authoritative, like, you know, in these regimes where it's unfair, maybe, or unexplained? That's a little different. I think to me that's where that balance is.
What is your coaching philosophy?
In what perspective? Like,
what? Why, I was gonna say, when you come into the gym, why are you there? Like, what is your purpose as the coach? What are you trying to do as a coach?
My job is to get you better than when I started with you in many different aspects. So it could be pure basketball. It could be like, yep, I want you to get better at passing, shooting, dribbling. But and Stephanie Rudnick talked about this too, as life or life as a sport, right? And I believe with this too. And I don't care if you go to the NBA or play college, but like there's so many things in a team environment, and like understanding respect or communications or talking or working through, like, again, the two of you, I'm sure, you know, living together have had some arguments. How do you get through that? And if it's a life skill, and I think that there's a lot of stuff, I truly believe even when I'm hiring, if they have some type of sport experience, they understand different concepts versus someone that has never done a sport, or maybe an individual sport. Because in individual sport, you have to rely on yourself and things, but like in a like football, soccer, basketball, even volleyball, like a team sport, you have to rely on someone volleying you the ball or passing you the ball or like playing defense.
And that's how do you respond when they throw you a bad pass and then
exactly
hit that shit to the net.
So for me, it's like, again, like growth from when you start with me and when you leave. My job is to make sure you're better. And even if you're not necessarily better as a basketball player, but you've learned life skills or communications, then great. Like I'm good to go from that perspective, which is the reason why I'm not, you know, trying to be as much as I'd like to be a coach, but other life decisions get in the way. You're like, yeah, I love to do it, but there's many things that get in the way, and what I'm focused on now is, again, from getting them and hopefully winning some games, but getting them better over the course of the time.
I was gonna ask because it came up before, but then we kind of got sidetracked into other valuable conversations. What do you do outside of coaching basketball?
Do you know or no?
I don't know.
Do you know?
Yeah, I believe you're a sales.
Yeah, that's all.
No.
Okay, then I don't know.
I don't
Yes. We need to do a little more research.
But you work in an insurance company, no?
I do not.
Okay.
You should just stop talking. I am the director of marketing for an insurance technology firm called.
That was mad close. That was
Technology.
you had like 3 out of the 9 words in that sentence.
Which are still not related at all.
So yeah, let me start. Marketing director of
An insurance technology software firm called Risk Control Technologies.
that was a lot of big words, and I want to know what that means.
So I lead the marketing function at a company. So I have outbound marketing, so a team of BDRs, so business development reps. They phone, they email, they draw up business, and then also in charge of basically every marketing activity. So it could be advertisements, it could be our brand, it could be our naming, it could be our what we spend our money on, it could be conferences. So like I have a budget for all those type of things. And then our company develops a piece of software for insurance companies that buy our software for their specifically their loss control and risk data needs.
Really? So I'm doing a summer internship at Green Shield, which is an insurance company.
They are.
And I'm in the cost management section, and we're working on making an AOP, which is an annual operating plan, and doing. I've just been exposed to OKRs, which are like different type of goals.
If we do
and
one more
stuff.
acronym, I might have an aneurysm.
I actually spent my first day of work probably about an hour watching different videos of Green Shield acronyms and making down notes. Actually, but that's actually really interesting as well. You do any work with Green Shield?
Objectives and key results, right?
Yeah. Do you do any work with Green Shield? Is that one of the insurance companies that the company owns?
I had them at another company, but yes.
Okay.
Scientific back.